if you're saving for a 20% down payment right now, stop. Not because that's bad, but because you might be doing it backwards. So here's the problem. As you keep trying to save money, the price of housing is going up faster. So no matter how long you save for, it feels like you keep falling behind. Here's what nobody tells you. The 20% down for most first-time home buyers, it's something that they get after they've already owned the house. And I know this because I'm a mortgage expert who's helped over 500 families get into homes without blowing their entire savings on their down payment. So I'm gonna flip the order and show you the steps and questions that you can ask yourself so that way you can get in the door sooner without worrying about saving 20% down. And getting this right could be the difference between owning a home this year and still renting 3 years from now. And most people start with the down payment. They pick the 20% down because they've heard it, it's a smart idea, and just save towards it for years. But here's the thing, the order is actually backward. This is what I call the when-then fallacy. When I get in shape, then I'm gonna go to the gym. It doesn't make sense, right? When I feel better, then I'm gonna go to the doctor, right? Saying when I save 20% down, then I'll buy is the same backwards logic. The down payment is not the first question you should answer. It's actually one of the last. So here's the first thing I would establish is, can you actually save faster than the market? Said differently, is can you save money faster than home prices going up? Remember the Lego that I made here? Can you save money faster than this home price going up? Now think about it for a second, because if you can't, this could be why every year it feels like you're going backwards from your goal of buying a home. So let's say home prices go up 5% a year. I know that's just a crazy number. I'm just using it as a round number to teach the concept. Your actual number appreciation metric is gonna be different for every market. And then there's this shortcut called the rule of 72. It basically tells you how many years it takes to double your investment or your asset, right? So you can use this for your stock portfolio. You can use it for real estate, your real estate investment portfolio, things like that. You take 72 and then you divide it by the growth rate. So 72 divided by 5 is 14, I believe. Let's double check that. 72 divided by 5. Yes, 14.4. 14.4. That means roughly 14 years or so, that home price will double. Now here's the part that burns. While the price of homes are going up, your savings might be climbing too, but they might be climbing slower than the real estate market appreciation. So if the market you're looking in, the homes are running up faster than you can actually save, you'll basically never catch up to it. So you might save, and the finish line just keeps moving further away, right? What sucks is if you feel like you're doing everything right, being responsible, being patient, but the math is pretty much going against you, right? Now, fortunately, this does go both ways. If you can save faster than the market, then sometimes waiting and saving up more for a larger down payment might make sense. But this is why there's other parts of the video. And this is where you really want to figure out how fast you can save compared to the real estate market. I'll give you a good one. Okay, so this reminds me of one of my clients. Technically, I guess not one of my clients, but we went through the whole process and stuff like that. So we got pre-approved. We went through the deep mortgage analysis that we do. Everything makes sense. And then 2 to 3 months later, it rolled by. They were able to find a house, but they also won a pretty sizable lottery ticket. So guess what? They were able to save faster than the market going up. That's why I say technically, not my clients, because they ended up buying all cash, but we still stay in touch. And this is an example of what I mean by being able to save faster than the real estate market. So all you got to ask yourself is, can you save up faster than the home prices going up? And it's a yes or no question. So then the next thing I would want to look at is, are there any first-time homebuyer benefits that we can take advantage of? I call this the FTHB LLPA waivers, just fancy words, I know. But it stands for first-time homebuyer loan level pricing adjustment waiver. Wow, that's a mouthful, right? Said differently, in simple words, you get good benefits as a first-time homebuyer if you make under a certain amount of money. So here's what happens. When you get a conventional loan, this applies to conventional loans, not necessarily FHA or VA loans, which is for veterans or active duty service members. But for conventional loans, this is what's called pricing adjustments. If you have a really low credit score versus a high credit score, your rate has those pricing adjustments or adjusts, right? That's why if someone puts a very high down payment and has a super high credit score, they'll usually get better rates, right? 50% down, 800 credits, or 760 credit score, excuse me. And by the way, that's usually 740, 760. That's when you get A+ interest rates and stuff like that. So that is what's called a pricing adjustment. If they're buying a condo or townhome, if you didn't know this, the pricing adjustment, if you put under 25% down for condos and townhomes, is actually higher interest rates because the lender sees it to be more risky because they're qualifying you and they're qualifying the HOA. So it's almost like two different parties, right? And you have neighbors. And that's something that a lot of first-time homebuyers don't actually know about, by the way. So here's the benefit. As of right now, as of filming this, it might change in the future. Conventional loans, they haven't mentioned how long they're going to keep this, etc. But if you make less than 100% of the area median income, so 100% of the area median income or less, or 120% in high-cost areas, and you're a first-time home buyer, you get these LLPA waivers, loan level pricing adjustment waivers. Meaning if you put 3% down, or 19% down, or 20% down, or 21% down, whatever it is, whether you buy a single family versus a condo, or have a 680 or an 800 credit score, you're pretty much getting the same interest rate, which is great for most first-time home buyers. If you have a super high down payment, you get to go on the fast track and the toll is free, right? And then if you're a first-time home buyer with low credit and a low down payment, you have to pay all these extra tolls, right? But you get this waiver if you make under a certain amount of income in your local area. So then you get these toll fees waived, basically. So what this means is if you're right at that limit or really close to that limit, it may make more sense to purchase while you're below that, especially if you're trying to buy a condo or townhome, because remember what I mentioned, condos and townhomes have different interest rates if you're putting under 25% down. But if you have that waiver as a first-time home buyer and you're below that income limit, that extra toll just gets waived for free, basically. Like we've had these situations where a borrower has their base pay, but with their bonus, it puts them over the limit. So with some math gymnastics, let's call it that, they were able to get down below the limit and everything worked out, right? But again, if you're really close to that limit, might be something you want to look into. All right, so real quick, if you're stuck wondering if you're actually ready to buy a home or not, that's why I actually built the free homebuyer readiness quiz. It takes less than 30 seconds. There's no credit pull. It's my free gift to you. It's actually something that I wish I would have had when I bought my first house. And think of it as almost like a roadmap of what potential things you could run into when buying a house. And I'll send you a video to solve that specific constraint so you can move on to the next step. Also, if you wanted more of like a custom one-on-one plan, there's a guidance call link right below that. That's actually where you get to chat with me because I believe the more specific the advice, the better the advice is going to be. And if it makes sense, maybe we can be your mortgage advisor too. So make sure to check that link out down below as well. Okay, so now let's talk about private mortgage insurance, which is something that you pay if you put under 20% down, because that's a big fear that a lot of people have. Did you know that you could buy out your PMI or your private mortgage insurance in one lump sum so you don't have to pay it monthly? So if you're doing this on a conventional loan, FHA loans, by the way, you can put 3.5% down. That mortgage insurance does last the life of the loan unless you're putting like 10% down, which is still basically you're going to pay FHA loan. It's not a permanent solution. It's kind of like a stepping stone loan that I would use, in my opinion, while you're building up your credit or building up your equity. So complete side tangent. But this situation is if you have a conventional loan, what you could do is buy out your private mortgage insurance, like I mentioned. So what this means is you pay it all up at once, at closing, one shot. So that way your PMI is gone for the life of the loan. Sometimes there are discounts that apply to it and stuff like that. So you're basically bulk paying it all at once, if that makes sense. Now it gets even spicier is you can actually have the sellers pay for this. Ooh, I just let you in a little secret, right? And it's especially really popular right now because in 2020 and 2021, where it was impossible to get your offer accepted, you had to, give up your dog, Indy. I had to, put up my dog for adoption for the sellers to just even get a counter offer, right? It was crazy. But now, because there's more sellers than buyers in most markets, it's actually a little easier to get this to happen for you. This big fear of, hey, I'm putting less than 20% down, so I'm going to have this private mortgage insurance monthly, that could be completely wiped out because sellers are more willing to entertain giving seller credits. Therefore, we can use that to buy out your private mortgage insurance. This reminds me of Samantha, and you know who you are, by the way. So thank you, Samantha, for watching the videos. Early congrats to you buying a house. I think she got into contract in like a week or two ago from the time of recording this. as you can see in the screenshot, she was able to get the sellers to replace her roof, the whole new roof, right? Having this happen back in 2021, that would have not been possible. It would have been impossible. You wouldn't have been able to even ask the sellers because they were like, get on the streets. We're going to take the next offer, the next 1 out of 50 offers that we have. Like I mentioned, you literally had to give up your dog or your pet, like Indy. I'm going to put her on the screen here. Like we have to use her as a bargaining chip to even have the sellers entertain our offer, right? So that's how you handle the PMI itself, or private mortgage insurance itself, right? So the next thing to consider is, does your loan allow you to put 2 down payments, one at closing and one later? So this is what I call recasting. And you guys know in the SpongeBob days where he does the imagination. So comment down below if you watched SpongeBob when you're younger. That's what I'm excited about with my son. It's so funny. My wife is holding my son. We had to do a quick burp break because he was napping and woke up. But I'm excited to go over, show him the cartoons that I grew up on. Anyways, okay, going back to it. So most home buyers will take the money that they've saved up and then just dump all that into the down payment. And they literally have like no extra money left over. Is, by the way, not a smart idea. Please do not do that. That is one way to become house poor. When you have a large monthly payment and you do not have extra money, that's still, like, you can have a low monthly payment and no money, that's still house poor, right? So anyways, so when the house basically starts asking you for money, AKA repairs and maintenance, the first year, stuff just comes up. Moving costs, something breaks, when it rains, it pours, you know that saying? The kitchen needs something, the backyard needs something, etc. Then you need to use all your credit cards, which is like at a 20% rate, which is higher than your mortgage rate anyways, all because the buyer, tried to do the safe route or the smart idea, which is put 20% down and have no emergency fund. So I call this the unexpected expected expenses. You know it's going to happen, you just don't know when. So this is why I like the recasting strategy. You put less down at closing on purpose, you get to keep a cushion, then you let the dust settle, right? Live in the house for a bit and see what is it that you actually need to, for moving costs, repairs, etc., in the first year or so. And then if you didn't need that cushion, great. Now you do something, what I call recasting, like I mentioned. It's just a fancy word for putting a down payment after closing. So you put a chunk of money towards your loan. The lender takes your new, smaller loan balance, but you still pay off the mortgage in the same amount of time, 30 years or whatever, but your mortgage payment drops, kind of like if you put a second down payment. So quick note on this. This is not for all loans. You can't do this for all loans. Usually it's conventional, sometimes jumbo loans, FHA and VA loans, which are government loans. You can't do what's called recasting. So who is this actually for? If your down payment is all the money you have, do not empty your bank account, keep the cash. You want to verify this with your lender that they can do recasting. If they can't, work with someone who can. If you receive a bonus annually or restricted stock units from your company, it might be something that you want to explore, where you get big liquidity events or big cash amounts in a month, where you can do this, second large down payment or a third large down payment later on. Okay, so we've been talking about down payment strategies, all this stuff, and you might be wondering if you're actually ready to buy a house or not. That's actually why I built the free homebuyer readiness quiz. It takes less than 30 seconds. There's no credit pull. It's my free gift to you. It's something that I wish I would have had, almost this roadmap when I first bought my house, so that way you can almost like see around the corner and not make those mistakes, right? Also, if you want a more custom one-on-one plan, there's a guidance call link below that. That's where you actually get to talk to me for 15, 30 minutes, and we get to figure out, hey, these are the 3 actionable steps that I would take to get you closer to your home buying goals. Because I'm a big believer, the more specific the advice, the better the advice is gonna be. So that way it gets you closer with less mistakes. So if it makes sense, also, maybe we can be your mortgage advisor too. So we talked about the recasting strategy, which uses money over time. But what if we do renovations over time? Ooh, what does that look like? So there's this concept called forced appreciation versus time appreciation. So there's really 2 main ways to build equity in a house. The first is time. You buy, you wait, and the market goes, up over time. So this is probably if your parents own a house, they bought it for $80,000 and they're like, yeah, now it's worth $500,000 and all that stuff, right? And you're like, man, that would have been sweet if we would have bought back in the day. So obviously that worked out really well for them, but it takes this thing called patience, and you just got to wait it out. The second way is forcing the value of the home to go up. That's usually done through renovations, sweat equity, things like that. So you buy a home that needs some love, you put in the work to force the appreciation or force the value to be higher. So you put the house in a different category, if that makes sense. So basically you can put a small down payment in the beginning. That way you keep more money in your bank account to do those renovations. So that way you can fix up the kitchen, you can do paint, you can do the bathrooms, clean up the yards, you can do high return on investment strategies on the house. Maybe you want to do a DIY project with you and your partner. We have a very close friend who actually just did that right now in Colorado. And they forced the equity up, which I think was a great idea. Or maybe you know somebody that's in your family or a close friend and you're like, hey, mind if I just buy you a few drinks or pay for a few dinners and we work on this together, and they help you out. Whatever the case, you increase the value through renovations, DIY, sweat equity, things like that. Now the home is worth more than you paid, not because the market moved in this timeline, but because you put in the work. So this reminds me of a client who actually put 5% down. I'm going to show their closing disclosure at the very end, so you see the value. They bought it at $610,000 back in 2025, mid 2025. And then you'll also see on the monthly payment, there's $77 of mortgage insurance, okay? Now, first of all, they only put 5% down, or very low down payment, I should say, and their mortgage insurance was $77. So even if you had to pay for mortgage insurance, $77, not that much, okay? It is some cost, but between you and I don't know about you, but maybe just skipping one Target run. Every time I go into Target, I spend over $100. I don't know why. So I try my best to avoid it, and then that'll pay for your mortgage insurance, right? And then we actually helped him refinance in March 2026, okay? Where he did the sweat equity. Now he did it himself, he had some friends, things like that. So it did take some time, but now his house is worth $860,000 in that short amount of time. And then you can see on the monthly payment, there is $0 for mortgage insurance. So in that short time window, I would say year-ish or so, right? That mortgage insurance was able to be removed. The home price went from $610,000 to $860,000. I can tell you, he did not put $250,000 of work into it. So yeah, I can tell you that is $250,000, right? I just did the math here. He did not put $250,000 worth of work in there. I would probably say under $100,000. So pretty good return. It was around 50 to 100, kind of in that range. So when I boil it down, basically a good renovation can add more value than it actually costs. For example, in one of my past clients' experience. And there are some downsides, is that you're actually going to be investing the money into the house, right? And if you do it incorrectly, it could cost you more than actual benefit. Meaning if you spend money on not smart things, right? I think that's the most things in life, right? If you spend money on not smart things, it may not be smart, okay? But if you spend money on the smart stuff, that's going to pay you back, good idea, right? Okay, so now here's the checkmate version, or the 2.0 version of this, is you force the value up. You're gonna do two things, right? The house will obviously be worth more, hence the example that I showed you. Next is you can request to have your private mortgage insurance removed, assuming you have 20% equity. If you're not there, maybe a refinance might make sense and you can remove it then. And hopefully you lower your interest rate too. And if you're not there, maybe a refinance might make sense, where you can refinance and lower your private mortgage insurance or remove it completely, and hopefully lower your interest rate too. So you can kind of kill two birds in one stone, if that makes sense. Earlier, you saw in the example, I think the client paid under 12 months of mortgage insurance. I think it was maybe 10 or so. So not a bad trade, and lots of equity gained. All right, so the next thing I would consider is not necessarily about the numbers, it's more about self-control. Can you keep your hand out of the cookie jar? So are you disciplined enough to invest the difference? So let's say you could put 20% down, but you're gonna put 5% down and invest the difference, because that's all these financial experts say that you should do that, right? So let's break it down. Every move I showed you today keeps cash in your pocket instead of the house. Less down, you have a cushion, and you can force the equity later, right? Now, here's the honest question. If you did all these different strategies to own a house sooner, you use these questions to identify what's the best down payment for you. Now, here's the honest question. The one this whole video comes down to, what are you actually gonna do with that extra money? Let's just say, for example, you're putting less down, leaves you $30,000 in your bank account. I'm just throwing an example out there. You have person one, let's call him John. John puts all of his money into the house. I'm sorry, John, if you're if your name John, I'm picking on you. Now it's locked into the walls of the house, right? It's really hard to get that money out. You have person two, let's say Sarah. She keeps $30,000 and invests it, puts in something simple like an index fund and just leaves it alone. Over time, that invested money from Sarah can grow. It can also dip along the way as well. But given the years that we're going to be invested in, Sarah could end up with more money than, she started with, on top of owning the same house. So on paper, Sarah wins. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. This only works if Sarah actually invests the money and doesn't touch it. So if you're watching this video and your name is Sarah, I'm picking on you too. Be disciplined, right? So it's almost like, can you be disciplined enough if you had ice cream in the freezer to not eat the ice cream every day? Some people can't resist it. Some people can. I can't resist it. Therefore, I try my best to not have ice cream in the freezer. It's kind of like out of mind, out of sight, right? So in situations like this, if you have the money or had the money, extra money, would you be disciplined enough to invest it even though it's sitting there and it's like, ooh, look at that money right there. And it's saying, spend me, right? We want to be disciplined. So what it boils down to, are you going to be John, who puts all the money and becomes house poor, or are you going to be Sarah, who invests it and is disciplined? Now, I know we covered a lot. Now, these are the things that I actually covered during our free guidance call that we provide to help home buyers get closer to home ownership, and you actually get to talk to me. So check out the link down below for a free guidance call with me, because like I always say, the more specific the advice, the better the advice is going to be. And if it makes sense, we'd love to be your mortgage advisor. Click the link down below if you're interested. Alrighty, so as always, I try to make the best videos in the mortgage education space. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't. We're trying to hit 10,000 by the end of the year. Would love for you to join the family. And YouTube has this crazy, algorithm thing that is recommending that you watch this video. It's different for everybody, which is crazy. YouTube knows. Go check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. And keep learning as always. And I'll catch you in the next one.